And we're back. We're going to continue on with the demo that we started previously in Git. This time, we're going to explore the same Git fundamentals inside of an integrated development environment. In this case today, it's going to be Eclipse. So let's dig into it. My name's Antoine Victor, and this is ProDataManTrains. All right, as I said, we're going to continue on with the Git demo that we started previously, but this time we're going to use those same Git commands inside of a GUI, graphical user interface. In this case, it's going to be an integrated development environment called Eclipse. So let's go ahead and jump into the virtual machine and take a look at our Git fundamentals inside of Eclipse. So over here to the left, I've got my terminal window from our previous demo where you can see my stack.java class is still there and has been committed to the StackUtility repository. Today, we are going to go into Eclipse and we're going to create a Maven project and then add that Maven project to our StackUtility repository in Git. So let's do it. Just maximize my copy of Eclipse here. And then I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to create a new project. The project type that I'm going to create is going to be a Maven project. And to do that, I'll have to go to the Other submenu here. And inside of the Other submenu, there is this new project wizard where you can see I've got the Maven folder already expanded. I'm going to select Maven Project and next. And since we're not going to be doing anything fancy in this demo, we're just going to create a simple stack app or stack class. I'm going to create a simple project and skip the archetype selection. And we'll use PDM for our group ID and stack app for our artifact ID. From there, we can just go ahead and hit finish. All right, so now we've got our stack app. And our stack app doesn't really have much of anything in it, but let's at least go ahead and add a quick little test here. We'll start using good programming practices. So we're going to use test-driven development, and we're going to create a new Java JUnit test case. And to do that, again, we're going to go into the Other window and create a new JUnit test case. Hit Next, and we'll name our JUnit test case Stack Test because we're going to use it to test our stack class. And we'll accept the default here to include a setup function. And let's go ahead and hit finish. Now, because we're adding a JUnit test case, it's asking us if we want to add the JUnit library to the build path. Well, if we don't do that, it doesn't work. So we'll go ahead and accept the default and click OK. Now you can see over here in our project, we have JUnit 4 in our build path, and we also have our new test class. I'm just going to take the sample test that they gave us here, and I'm going to rename it to isEmpty test. And in this test, we're just going to check for the existence of the stack class by creating a new instance of the stack class and storing it in a variable called stack with a lowercase s. And then we're going to assert that when we call the stack objects isEmpty method, that it returns true. Now, since both the stack class and the isEmpty method on that stack class don't yet exist, first we get red squigglies on the stack class itself, and we can get rid of those red squigglies by simply creating a class called stack using the code generation tools. Now, the only change that I'm going to make here is that I don't want the stack class created in the test folder. Rather, I want it created in the main folder. So I'm going to change that to main, and then you can see it's already chosen the name stack for my class. So I'm just going to hit finish. You can see it has automatically created the stack class for me. I didn't have to type anything. Less typing, less typos. So let's go back to our test. And you can see in our test, the red squigglies have been removed from the stack class, but they've moved down here to the reference to the isEmpty method on the stack object. And since we just created that stack class, we know that it has no isEmpty method definition. So again, we're going to use the code generation tools to go ahead and create a method in the stack class called isEmpty. And again, the code generation tools have automatically created a method called isEmpty that returns false by default. In order for our test to pass, we have to return true. But before we do that, let's go ahead and run our test and see it fail. So I'm going to run as a JUnit test, prompting me to save all of my files. And now we can see, as indicated by the red bar here, that our test has failed due to an assertion error because it's expecting true and what it got was false. Now, if we simply change that to true, our test will pass, but we really haven't solved the business problem. We'll do that on a future demo. For now, let's just see if our test passes. So again, we'll right-click and we'll run it as a JUnit test. Prompted to save our files again. And this time we get a green bar, which indicates that our test has passed. Now we can go ahead and associate our Maven project with the repository that we created earlier. So all we're going to do here in our Git repositories window is we are going to add an existing local Git repository to our Eclipse instance here. And you can see it already knows that there's a Git repository out there called StackUtility, and it's asking us if we want to associate with that one. Why, yes, we do. So I'm going to check the checkbox and click Add. Now you can see in the repositories window that Eclipse is well aware of our StackUtility repository and the working tree that contains the stack.java class that we created in the previous demo. Now we're going to go ahead and add our Stack app to that StackUtility repository. We're going to use the team menu and the share project menu item to do that. Here it asks us what repository that we want to configure. And since we've already added it, all we have to do is select from the dropdown that StackUtility repository that we just associated with Eclipse. And now we can select Finish and associate our Stack app project with the StackUtility repository. Now that we've made that association, if we jump back over to the terminal, we'll be able to see that in the terminal, if we do a git status now, that there are new untracked files in that Stack app folder that contains our Maven project. Now let's jump back over to Eclipse, and in Eclipse, we'll use the Git Staging view. In the staging view, you can see that we have unstaged changes. I'm going to select all of those files, click the little plus button here, and we'll add those files to the staged changes area. Now, if we jump back to the terminal window and run a git status again, we will see that now we have staged files that are waiting to be committed. Now, if you recall from the previous demo, we could commit those files by doing a Git Commit and adding a commit message like created initial project structure. Or we could do that exact same thing in the GUI in Eclipse by typing our commit message here. Created initial project structure. Less typing, less typos, like I said. And now we can go ahead and commit those changes. But before we do that, let's have a little fun. I'm going to drag these stage changes back over to unstaged changes with just a drag and a drop or pressing the minus key there. If we jump back over to the terminal and run a git status again, we can see now those files are untracked and no longer staged. This time I'll go ahead and do the git add here to add all of the files in the current directory to the staging area. Now, if we do a git status, we can see that those files are back in the staging area. And if we come back to Eclipse and we do a refresh, we can see that those files have indeed moved to the staging area. So let's go ahead and commit those files. Now the files have been committed, nothing in the staged or unstaged area. And if we go back to the terminal and we run a git status, we can see that indeed we do have nothing left to commit and our working tree is clean. So that concludes this demo of performing the same basic Git commands in a graphical user interface or integrated development environment, IDE, which in this case we used Eclipse for. You could use pretty much whatever tool that you want to use for whatever programming language that you're working in. In most cases, they will have some level of Git integration. But if you do run across an IDE that doesn't have Git integration, you can always jump back to the terminal, to the command prompt. So that concludes our demo. Join us on the next one for some slightly more advanced Git commands, both at the terminal and in the IDE. I'm Antoine Victor, and this has been ProDataManTrains. Join us for the next demo to see more advanced Git commands. If you enjoyed this demo, please smash that like button. It really helps us out. And if you want to make sure you're notified when the next video comes out, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you get all the notifications. Thanks again for watching.